Uh, I am going to share a document because I'm going to work off a document because it's something you will be able to access. So bear with me just one moment. Do, do, do. Share. Co- Copy link. Done. So there you go there. And now I will do let me just minimize some things on my desktop because you don't need to see my mess. There we go. And now I will do a screen share. I used to hate this too when things would go wrong and then I would, especially when I was teaching in the classroom way back in the day. So it was always challenging, as I'm sure many of you experience. So bear with me one more minute while there you are. Okay, so one of the things that Carrie, Doug, and I have been talking about and looking at is these is providing you all with some ideas, resources, strategies for teaching in different modalities because we have so many different modalities on our campus that we teach in. So what we did was we pulled together a variety of resources. Now, I do want to say, and I want to be very, very transparent with this, we did use AI to help us with this because we are not subject matter experts in your various fields. So by using AI, it helped us pull some of those ideas together that could be very specific for some disciplines. And of course, you all with your years of experience in the classroom, I'm sure can probably take some of those and edit them to work in your environment. So within this document, we talk about one of the things we use as we think about learning in a variety of modalities, and that is the community of inquiry. The community of inquiry has been around since, oh my goodness, 1999, 2000. But it's this idea that there are three different presences within teaching, and the modality doesn't matter really anymore. It used to be more focused on online. So within this document, it talks about the idea of the community of inquiry. I do have a video, a image, and usually you'll see it as a Venn diagram with the three different modalities. If you can just bear with me again for a minute, or I'll include it in this document um, because I'm so afraid if I bring up everything else. Yeah, see, that's what I was afraid of. I didn't want that. Ah! And I apologize if I'm a little bit discombobulated this morning. Like I said, this technical issue really t threw me off where I could find things quickly because I realized when I saw the time, I was like, oh my goodness. I will come back to that only because I don't want to bring everything up and then and have you see the mess of my desktop. But within the community of inquiry, we talk about this idea of social presence where your students and you can really interact in a purposeful environment where you start building trust, and that's particularly important in some of our um, virtual modalities such as asynchronous online, synchronous online. Though within synchronous online, of course, you have some interaction with your students because you're using usually some type of video conferencing. um, the idea of this of teaching presence, which is helping your students work through what it is you're doing in the classroom, and that is showing that you're right there with them. And then this idea of cognitive presence, where it helps learners be able to under not understand, but build build their understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish in the class. So within this document, you know, I have a basic idea, you know, a basic description of what the community of inquiry is. And if you want more information, I've included a link out to the official website for that. So what I'm going to do here too is we'll walk through what we've covered in here. And we've really focused on the virtual modalities, asynchronous online, synchronous online, hybrid or blended. You'll hear it called both. And then the other one I do include in here is hyflex because we have had some hyflex courses on the campus that those were done as a pilot. And there are always, and I think hyflex provides the most challenges when you're trying to create a course. So when you think about asynchronous online, again, it's a great way for the learner that can't be on campus, but it does come up with its own challenges in so much as sometimes you lose, as it says here, you'll lose that energy that you will have in a classroom, but there are other ways you can do that. So within each section of this, we talk about some of the different types of strategies you can use in your course. So for example, the first thing talks about, humanized introductions, or even this whole idea of humanizing your course. And again, it provides, it's an idea for students, when we talk, a lot of times we talk about in online to, do introductions, but there are a variety of ways to do introductions. So it's finding ways to engage your students too. So for example, you could encourage them to do, short videos. Now, granted, some students don't like to be on camera, so ask them to use an avatar or a picture of, say, their dog, their cat, or something that's important to them. Because again, that's another way you and their peers can get to know somebody because they talk about some of their interests or what have you. Of course, some of the other strategies are using this idea of, of course, having office hours because again, they don't have to be formal office hours either. And you'll see in some of the other places they talk about like a coffee hour or a place to just come hang out with their peers and you as the instructor, because what that does again is it provides them the opportunity to see you're more than their instructor. They see that you're human. So because for example, one of the things we do encourage faculty to do is if you're going to create like short vignettes or short videos in your course and something happens in the background as you're creating this, and I'm going to refer to something with Sandy Barganier because many of you know Sandy, and Sandy was creating a short video to explain a concept or introduce a module. I can't remember which, but while she was doing that, there was a crash in the background. She has cats. So she stopped for a minute and she was like, and she laughed and she said, well, I'll have to look at that later or something to that effect. And then she just continued on. What that does though is it shows students you're human. It shows them your humanness, and students love those little things. They love when you put little videos in and they're not perfect. And I know many of you have had the opportunity, for example, to work with Jay High, our videographer, and he creates those beautifully professionally done course introductions and faculty introductions. But there's something to be said about those moments where you can just show you're a person. And I think that really helps build that social presence for you and build those relationships with your students. So again, with asynchronous online, thinking about some different ways to build that idea of cognitive presence where, you think about chunking, keeping especially if you use video, keeping them short, but also reminding if you can't break them, thinking about it in the context of telling your students that You don't have to watch this whole thing right now. Um, break it up because again, when you think about cognitive overload, it's a waste of time. So if you can break them up into smaller chunks, or if you really can't, just remind your students at the beginning of the video, it's okay if you can't watch this all at once. Watch, maybe you suggest watch the first 5 minutes, and if you need to take a break at that point, thinking about where the natural break would be, and then continue watching. Because again, sometimes it can be really difficult to chunk some larger concepts. um, Ideas for some of your, thinking about it from your teaching presence ideas. I think one of the things that can be extremely helpful is this idea of the transparent introduction. So thinking about explaining to your students why we're doing this, exactly what they have to do whatever the task is, but also then providing them an example. So thinking of it from the context of relevance. Why is this relevant to your students? Not only is it relevant and how is it not only relevant within the field, but how is it relevant to the real world? That's one of the things that can be so beneficial to students, is helping them see how it is relevant not only to them here and now to pass the course, but how is this going to be relevant to them regardless of the field they go into and in their work life down the road. And sometimes that's hard to do, especially if you're not as familiar with, maybe you're teaching, a gen ed. But there are some things you can provide your students to let them know, hey, this is going to help you think of things from this perspective, or provide you with a broader sense of what's going on out there, and that you can bring to what it is you're doing, whether it's in your chosen field or whether it's just in life. So within this document, you also have like there's just some comparisons in there with, what we used to do traditionally with asynchronous, but also now how you can make it a little bit more dynamic, how you can engage your students in there. So thinking about it, for example, I think one of the big things is this idea of low stakes weekly check-ins, because again, one of the things we have heard from students on the rare occasions we get to work directly with students is that high stakes just it puts so much stress on them, and they struggle to make sure that they're able to do this. So if you have an exam that you only have like 2 or 3 major exams, and that's what their pass or fail is based on, that can be extremely um, anxiety producing for students, and they may not do well. So sometimes just having some of these smaller assignments, it doesn't mean don't do a midterm, don't do a final, but really being thoughtful on maybe how much that is worth. But that kind of stuff can really help with this idea of teaching presence too, because you can think about it as, you're thinking about your students, not only the grading component of that. So within this document, and again, like I said, I was transparent. We did use AI to do this because, again, we are not subject matter experts in your various fields. We provided some ideas with some of the different, within the different disciplines. And so for these are just some examples that if you've not had the opportunity to try with, if you are teaching asynchronously online, you might be able to do some of these pieces. So I'm going to move on. I don't want to fly through this because I know sometimes that can be like um, very annoying. But again, since you have access to this document, you can come back to this. And we will have a link to this on our website so that if you find you can't find it, you can just go to oswego.edu and do a search for instructional design, and you should be able to find it on our page. It's not there yet, but it will be within the next day or two. So what I did do was was did some examples for calculus online because that is a not an easy course for a lot of students. And we have had some interaction with the math department, and really we're not those subject matter experts, but thinking about it from an instructional design standpoint and how we can find ways to integrate some of these other strategies within various disciplines. So I thought this was pretty good. Again, I've never taken calculus, so I have no idea. And that's the other thing too. Just keep in mind that, for the instructional design team, we have our areas of expertise. It outside of instructional design because we do have some subject matter expertise in certain areas, but not to the degree you all have. So that's why we did this. But these are the different things too. We can also have those consultations or just discussions with any of you that would be interested. But I wanted to put this in here because, again, we've had some discussions with some of the math faculty, and we've provided ideas. But again, because we don't know enough about these different areas. That's why I decided that, let's try AI on this and see what comes up with. So if we have any math faculty here, if you take a look at this, you can always just send us a quick email saying, no, that's garbage, or yeah, that was kind of helpful. So just to, again, put some of this in there. So keep in mind, yes, the formulas, I have no idea. So Michael Hurley, I see you're here. So when you have a chance, if you wish, just provide us some feedback on that if you feel so inclined. That would be lovely. Because in all honesty, you were probably one of the people I thought about because we had had discussions with you about thinking about things from the synchronous online component and on fully online.
Okay, yeah. Well, first off, the math type test equation for a derivative is incorrect. It
Okay.
should be limit and h should it should be limit as x approaches h, and it should be x plus h inside the parentheses, not x equals h. Now those
Okay.
are
And that could be me because I was
those are
trying to
little
fix
things.
things. So no, I will come back to you. I will reach out to you individually, and this way I can remove stuff that is not correct. And if there is things like that that need to be fixed, I would want to make sure. And again, this was this is what I mean. We are not the SMEs here, so um, I figured I'd just put it out there with the hope that we might have you in here. So thank you, and I will reach out to you. All right, so I'm going to go to Synchronous Online, and I know some of you here have been teaching Synchronous Online, which is basically you're using Zoom or another tool to actually interact with your students. So you're having these live online sessions. Um, so there's some things in here too that can be helpful. And for those of you that are teaching in that modality, you may already be doing some of these things. But thinking about it, again, one of the challenges that I hear about all the time is Zoom fatigue. Um, because the students, if students need to be on screen the whole time during a Zoom session, and that can really turn some students off. But I understand too that you just want to make sure that they are present and they are listening. So there are some ways too, not only from what's here, um, you know, offering some of these suggestions, but also even during your course time with them. And again, I realize that sometimes 55 minutes isn't enough, but even if you just give them 2 to 3 minutes saying, okay, we're going to take a short break here, feel free to turn off your cameras for a few minutes. Please come back in X time. I just want to give you guys a chance to get up, move around, and to be off camera for a few minutes. And that can be really helpful because, again, it it's it can be a real struggle to just be on all the time. I know for some of the sessions I'm in different places, or even for some of the external professional development we do online or through synchronous sessions, I don't always keep my camera on because it's fatiguing, that for lack of a better term. So just some things to think about with that. Um, and then I think I also know one of the other challenges is keeping students engaged, knowing whether they are engaged. Um, so one of the things I do like is this, the idea of the waterfall chat where you just ask them to, type your answer, but don't do it yet. Um, there was something else I saw that, oh, one other thing I saw that I thought was interesting is like if you're having a discussion and maybe you're having just, you could just have a small group of people actually discussing maybe a piece of literature or a process within business. And you could have your students doing a back channel using the chat, having them write, you know, provide some different ideas and suggestions or questions or what have you, where they're chatting together in the actual chat while they're listening to this. This happens a lot too. If you think about conferences and stuff, we do this a lot. We'll have a back channel where maybe somebody's monitoring, but there's a lot of conversation that'll go on back there that can help engage the students in actually what's being said on the screen. So that's just something to think about. And I've always thought that was kind of interesting and it can be fun. Again, some of the other things is if you're going to put your students, for example, in breakout rooms, make sure um, they have a document that they're going to work through, because and in that document it includes things like, here's what you're supposed to be discussing, here's your timeline, here's what my expectation is when we come back together in 15 minutes. And so they have all of that, because even though you'll tell them, they'll forget invariably once they get into the room. And I will tell you, I'm just as guilty as that when I'm in different workshops, um, in say professional development or what have you. I will forget, okay, what is it we're supposed to do? That is invariably the question that will come up when we get in there. So that's just something else to think about if you're going to use breakout rooms. So in in this document too, they've provided some ideas on how you might um, implement different aspects of the community of inquiry within your courses. So, and if you all find things in here that are you feel would not be beneficial, or you have some strategies you would want to add in there, we're happy to have that as well. Um, so within hybrid, thinking about it using again the community of inquiry, um, it can be the best of both worlds. But one of the challenges with a hybrid or blended course is the fact that sometimes what happens is it winds up to be a course and a half or two courses. So it's finding ways to make sure that your um, in-person components of the course and your online components of the course work together, and one should feed into the other. So again, there are some different ways you can consider for making sure there's social presence. Um, and again, a lot of times too, though, from what I've seen on our campus with hybrid courses, and again, it's been a while since I've sat in one of the courses. There is not, in here, it's talking about potential live session, and they're meaning here where there's a Zoom session. I know a lot of times with our hybrid courses, there's a in-person and online. So it's just making sure that you think of it from that perspective. And there's a couple of ideas in here for the social presence. Um, for the idea of your cognitive presence. Now, one of the things we talk about too when you talk about hybrid blended is this concept of the flipped classroom. And again, this some of this would go back to the synchronous online as well. One of the things that can be beneficial with these modalities is, and I know this is difficult, the students do try to do the reading or whatever it is prior. So your session becomes more of a discussion, not so much a lecture, um, if that's at all possible. Now, I understand students don't like to read. They don't necessarily come prepared to class. But if it's possible and feasible, you might be able to do some of that too, which can engage your students a little bit more than lecture. Or again, you just pick tidbits because you know your students better than anybody. So you know what's going to happen. You invariably will know, oh yeah, no, they don't read this. So I kind of have to go this way. But it's some things to think about if at all possible. Um, Keep in mind that you want to make sure your students know, and again, I didn't do a good job of removing this, but I'm going to remove it now. The LMS is the place to get the information. Um, but that also it also is a good thing if your syllabus and and what you do in your course, whether regardless of modality, they all mesh, they all say the same thing. Because that can be a problem. So it's making sure your syllabus is clear. And that helps with this whole idea of teaching presence. And that really doesn't matter what modality you're teaching. It's that was one of the things I find that students would struggle with. So if I wasn't clear with something in my syllabus, um, it would be it would be challenging for them, and then you'd get a lot of questions. And so, of course, one of the big things we want is to make things as clear as possible, to minimize the questions from students. But when you get the questions from students, it's good for you to sit and think about, okay, especially if you get multiple questions of the same type. Okay, obviously I'm not clear here. How do I revise this to make it more clear so the students understand? Especially if it's asynchronous online. But there's opportunities when you're doing that, for example, to maybe provide a short video, a 2-minute video saying, okay, I'm getting a lot of questions about this. Here's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes that can be beneficial as well. If you and it's something you can even think about as you reflect on your semester. Okay, where were the real challenges for my students in understanding what I was expecting of them? And then you can work through that, and whether you put it in text or a video or both, that can be really beneficial to your students. So again, here was just some ideas from implementing hybrid across the various disciplines. And again, I'm just going to say we used AI to do this because these are not our areas of expertise. And if you see an error, if you use this document at all, and if you see errors, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are happy to fix it and make it more realistic. The last piece in here is we're talking about hyflex, and that is probably one of the most challenging modalities. Um, and I think we had about 5 faculty in communications, particularly in the master's strategic communications, who did a pilot. And I will tell you, they were amazing. They worked really, really hard to do right by their students. I will tell you, because I had the opportunity to sit in some of those classes, our faculty did an amazing job because these students gave me all kinds of amazing feedback for these courses. And the bottom line was is that for so many of our students, they would not have been able to go through the program without having this type of modality. But it is an incredible amount of work. But it's It's finding ways to put all three components together in a single course. And that's where it's challenging. But some of these strategies for doing that can be beneficial, and some of them will work for even some of the other modalities that you are teaching. So it's different ways to think about it. And some of it is very similar too. And again, there are a variety of different tools that are mentioned in here. And that's just because there are so many out there that will do these different things when they're talking about whiteboards. For example, like within Zoom, we have a whiteboard, so we don't need to worry about an external piece to that. Back channel discussions, I know they talk about Slack and Discord here. Slack is used a lot in industry. Um, so that can be a great tool, but just keep in mind if you're using tools that aren't supported by the university, um, you're kind of on your own. So if you're going to, for example, want your students to do back channel discussions, I would encourage you to do it through Zoom or using Google, because you can use Google Chat as well if you're comfortable with that. Keep in mind too, like with Google, for example, you can create spaces for your courses if you're not familiar with that. Um, so you can still use that, and students can actually access that outside of your normal. For example, if you're doing a hybrid course, they can still access that outside of that. But again, it could be another place to do that if you don't want to, if maybe you're using Google Meet, for example. So in here too, it talks about some other strategies for hyflex. And one of the things is that we have found beneficial is example, having a student moderator in your chat. And that's something you can do too for your synchronous online. If you have a couple of students or it's an option you want to offer to your students for a couple extra points, can somebody moderate the chat for me? Um, and it could be a rotating schedule. Everybody can maybe sign up for a week. I don't know, some different ideas, again, to help keep them engaged and to make it that you can focus maybe a little bit more on the activity or what you need to do as far as some lecturing within there, and your moderator or moderators could look at and say, and then at strategic points, your moderator could come to you and say, Dr. So and so, there is a question in the chat. This is what the question is, and they can, and then that could benefit everybody. So the other things we've included in here is that this idea of a community of inquiry course audit. So you think about it too. We do a lot with, particularly with online courses, we'll do different types of reviews. This one, you can go through and think about it from different ways where you can say, okay, what's in my course? What's included in my course? Do I include some low stakes interactions? Do I have some peer-to-peer items? Um, what's, the tone and affect in here, which can be really beneficial too, depending on how you need to provide different things like this. And it's just a short checklist for you to think about and to maybe you utilize. This is not the end all. This was just something that I saw, um, got a little help from AI, kind of went back into the literature with the community of inquiry to determine what made sense and what didn't make sense. So this is just some ideas. And then this last piece for now is just the balance sheet. If you are, and it just says, if you are missing this idea of social presence, this is how students tend to feel. And this is what the literature tells us too. So this isn't just random. You figure with the community of inquiry being around for as long as it has, there's been an incredible amount of research used on that, using that as a basis for different types of surveys and different types of additional research on online environments. So these are just some ideas on how you might do this. So as I've said, this document is open and it's available. If you have questions about it, if you have comments about it, we would love to hear them. We are, because we want to be able to provide additional um, ideas and resources. The other thing you all should be aware of is hopefully within the next month, if not sooner, we will have available to you some self-paced workshops that you can do on your own, where you do not need any intervention from us. The goal is that we would be able to provide some type of a um, certificate or badge or something like that to say, yep, this is, you participated in this and this was the learning outcomes. From this, again, they would be short. You do them on your own time if you feel you wish to. We do plan to have a couple, maybe one or two facilitated workshops. So they would be done more online. It would be an online type workshop, and we would run it in that modality. Though, if there's interest, we could run things in other modalities as well, such as synchronous online, if you wanted to have um, some Zoom sessions. It's possible. We haven't ruled that out at all. So I'm hoping that you find some of these resources helpful. We still do have other things on our website. I'm going to stop sharing now. Um, and okay, I'm just looking at the chat now. So, um, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Maureen. That the waterfall chat can work really well, but at the same time, it can be difficult to process because there's so much coming through. I can certainly, and that's great. That's great. You use the Google Doc because then everything's easily captured. Great idea. Scott, I'm assuming you mean um in the hyflex
Yeah,
or
yeah, high flex or hybrid, really. You would want this if
yes,
you really want everyone to be participating, quote unquote, equally.
absolutely. Absolutely. And in hyflex, when I saw our faculty in StratCom doing that, it's exactly what they did. And I cannot give them enough props. They did an amazing job. But that's a tough, tough, tough modality. But you would in that place, you would definitely want them all logged on, except those that would be participating in the online component of that, obviously. Um, yeah, and I agree with you, Maureen. I would love to do more in Zoom, but I also realize that's really, really tough. Um, and Doug, Carrie, and I have done a lot of talking about how we might do things like that. We've talked about doing maybe some short um, recordings of different things. And then only because sometimes in a Zoom session, it can become more confusing, especially when you have a large group and you have a lot of questions. And so people are asking questions while you're doing something, and sometimes that can get really confusing. So we're trying to figure out some good ways to be able to provide different types of sessions to you all. One of the other things too that we do have coming for spring semester is we're piloting um, an an online community of practice for on. All right, let me rephrase that. It's a community practice for online teaching, but that doesn't preclude anyone who is not teaching online from being part of that. But this is something that we are piloting with Chris Rumlock from Modern Language, as he is our online teaching fellow. So we're doing that, and that was why many of you received the survey from us back. What was it? Late October, early November. Um, And I do have to say, we got an amazing response with that. At least I thought it was amazing. I mean, we sent out over 500 emails and approximately 125 responded. So I thought that was pretty darn amazing. And I appreciated everyone's feedback, comments. But Chris and I will be doing a session next week where we'll talk a little bit more about that, talk about what our topics will be, how we're setting it up, how you can find that. So some of these pieces here can certainly be part of our discussions within that community of practice. So again, we're looking at different ways to be able to support you all with the virtual modalities. I think that's a good way to put it, because that has been our role for many, many, many years. So hopefully you will find some of these things helpful to you. And if not, and if you see some real errors, please reach out. And like I said, Michael, I will reach out to you, so that if any of this is worth keeping in there, we will keep it in there, or we can separate it out into other documents to make it easier for people to get to. So with all that said, what questions do you have? Absolutely. If you want to go for it. Like I said, I'm going to put it, I will get it up on our website in the next couple of days. So you can search, and that'll be another place to be able to find it as well. I just haven't figured out where I'm going to put it there. Probably in trending topics.
Do you have strategies for how to conduct exam taking recommendations in an asynchronous course where we need remote proctoring or in-person proctoring? The math department is losing its remote proctoring service that they use for asynchronous online courses, and we are still stumped as to exactly how we're supposed to get students to be able to take exams in an asynchronous course with no way to keep them from using AI or other cheating technology during the exams.
Yes, that has been a real challenge, and I know the math department has been working with a proctoring tool for quite a while. Um, I think those are some discussions maybe we can take offline and allow us some time to kind of mull that over, because it's not an easy thing. And of course, with the fact of with AI, along with some of the other challenges that are inherent to online, particularly with math, the math and science component, it is difficult. And because we're not always sure what it is, I mean, I know, Michael, we've had conversation with you about some of those challenges. And so we might need to dig deeper and maybe look at some more literature, maybe reach out to some other institutions that are doing things like that. Are there any other questions we can answer for you?
I have a quick question, Theresa. This is Maureen.
Hi, Maureen.
I know John has told me this before and I can't remember. When I'm Zooming, I'm told that Brightspace will, I think, create an attendance record, or does Zoom, I'm sorry, maybe Zoom creates an attendance record, but I could set it up through Brightspace. Is that right? Like a record keeping mechanism? Or maybe I was dreaming.
No, I think there is. Because a lot of, because there, Carrie, did you capture that?
I'm actually going through and I'm like, I bet you there is a way.
I think there is,
Through,
but no, all I'm saying is capture that so we don't
yeah.
forget, and so we just double check. I want to make sure, I'm pretty sure there is, but I don't know exactly how to use it. So I want to make sure we can find something for you that will be helpful.
Is this a question about keeping track of attendance in online sessions? Yeah, if you just log into Zoom, zoom.us, on the left-hand tab, there'll be something that will say reports. And then you choose, there's two options there. One is for sessions where people register. That's the bottom one. That will not have it. But if you click on the top one, you pick the date or the range of dates, and it will display all of those. And it will show you the number of people who were attended. And it's highlighted. It's a clickable link. Click on that, and then you can download it as a spreadsheet. And you may want to also have it set up to show unique users in case people got bumped out and then had to come back in. So it will show you the total amount of time that each person was there.
Okay.
Is there documentation of that? Because I caught that and have a vague sense of how to find my way through it, but I won't in 5 minutes. So
Understood.
yeah,
Understood.
that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that because I thought there was, but I just off the top of my head, I couldn't remember how, but we'll see what we can find that can point you to the right stuff. And I'm sure there may be something from Zoom and there could be some stuff. Again, we can certainly check with John. All right. Is there any other questions or things we can help you with? All right. If any of you would like to consult with one of us, have other questions pertaining to using Brightspace or considering revising assignments or how to make certain things more effective in whatever modality you're teaching, please reach out to us. The easiest way to reach out to us is probably through the help desk. And the reason with that is because if you reach out to one of us individually, you may not catch us because again, we're in and out of the office. And we would want to make sure that you were responded to quickly. So please feel free to reach out to the help desk and say, I'd like to, something as simple as I'd like to meet with an instructional designer. They will put it into the LMS queue and one of us will reach out to you. So I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you find this helpful. And if you, again, don't forget to reach out to us. If you need the link, we can certainly get you the link and I will do my best to get it up on the website in the next couple of days.
Just a stupid, dumb question. Can we access that document just by just searching in our Google Drive? Will that document come up?
It
Because you said you
should.
shared that.
I shared it publicly.
Okay, so like if we just search strategies for,
I'm going to guess, yes. I mean, we'll test it.
It should be in your recent, if you're in your Google Drive, just look in your recent documents and it'll show up that way.
right, but eventually it won't be recent anymore. So how?
But we'll double check that for you, Steve, but we should be able to. And like I said, I'm going to put a link out on
Thank you.
out on our website. So that's what
Okay,
I say. If you go to oswego.edu, you do a search for instructional design, our site will come up. And then it'll,
instructional design. Okay,
yeah, because we have that whole site up there that has some links to some different resources that we provide. For example, there is a document on what should be included in a fully online course that was approved by the deans, that there's a link to that. There is a link to our version of the Oscar rubric that we use when we do course reviews. And there's some links to some of the resources we've seen for excuse me, AI. There's resources there for an accessible syllabus, and there will be some others coming in the next few weeks. So, and any other questions? Thanks, Carrie. All right. Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. And reach out to us if there's anything we can help you with. Take care.
Thank you.